Hi boys and girls, today I'm going to read you a story called My Old Man. It's by Patricia Polacco and it is published by the Penguin Putnam Books for Young Readers. Whenever I get quiet and still inside and wish I was little again, all I have to do is think about my summers in Michigan. When I do this, it isn't now anymore, it is then again. Our mom and dad were divorced, and our summers were spent with our dad and grandma in the village of Williamstown, just outside of Lansing. There's our house on Middle Street. There's our grandma in the winterlight. She is watering her plants. Those are her crepe paper parrots. There's Mr. Balkovich trying to get the mail past the Graffner's dog. There I am on the front porch with my brother Richard. Do you see him yet? Richie asked as I leaned almost tipping over the railing. Nope, I answered, but he'll be here by 4. Just like clockwork, he always is. We were referring to our old man. Our old man was a traveling salesman who knew the back of the roads of Michigan like most of us know our own faces in a mirror. He was a flim-flam man. He worked in words the way artists work in oil or clay. Streaming all over the state in his big old cruiser with his radio turned to WJIM. He was a dream saver, a wish keeper, a raggedy man in unmatched socks and a worn plaid suit. Every single day of his life on the road, he brought home a tale to tell us. He collected stories like kids collected baseball cards or fine ladies collected special teacups. When he'd pull up, he'd always spin us a good yarn, like how Eddie Dunkel got his heel caught in the train tracks when the 433 was barreling down at him out of Flowerville, or how he personally saw the Bender sisters buying chewing tobacco over at Fate's Pharmacy, for their hired hand, they'd say, but everybody knew it was for them. He'd never had a story that changed so many things for Richie and me as the day he glided home in his big old cruiser, stepped out and said, "You'll never guess what happened today in that there machine." His eyes were blazing. We knew this was going to be the mother of all stories. We slid to our knees to hear better. I was making my way out near Rowley Church, driving along sweet and easy, when near Aunt Elsa's woods the machine stopped, all by itself. I just sat there. "What happened then, Da?" We asked in a whisper. I got out of the car and walked straight into the woods and found myself smack near Potter's Pond. "What happened then, William?" Grandma asked as she wheeled into the room. "Well, sir, that's when I saw it." "Saw what?" we asked. "You'll have to see it for yourself to believe it," he said as he squinted his eyes all serious-like. We steamed out to Detz Road to the exact spot where the car stopped for Dad. It stopped again, gentle-like, without a sound. We followed Dad into the woods until he brought us to Potter's Pond. Then he stopped and pointed. It was a rock, a great, huge rock. My brother howled in disbelief. "Ah, Dad, it's just an old rock." "Give it a chance, Richie boy. Keep looking," my dad coaxed. "I thought it was just a rock, too, until there's magic in that rock." "It's just a dumb rock," Richie kept saying. I kept looking and looking until I couldn't look away. "Come on, Richie, look at it," I said. You see, I knew my brother needed magic more than any of us. He hadn't been the same since my mom and dad got their divorce. I walked over and started touching that rock. "Why, there's lines in it. They look really old, too." Now, without saying a word, Richie went up and touched the lines in the rock, one by one. "It's magic," he whispered. We burst into the parlor telling Grandma about the magic rock. It didn't matter to any of us what the magic was yet. We knew it was just there, all right. "Ma," Dad said, "what I can't figure out is that I grew up just over the holler from that pond, and I swam there almost every day in the summer, and I don't recall ever seeing that rock before." "That certainly is strange, isn't it?" Grandma said thoughtfully. "It's so old," Richie whispered. "Like it's been there forever," I agreed. Richie started singing and dancing around the room. "Here comes the magic," he kept singing. "Here comes the magic." "I haven't seen that boy smile like this for ever so long," Grandma said. "That's magic enough for me." I just wondered how the magic was going to happen to us. A few days later, near about noon, Richie and I were making crepe paper parrots with Grandma. She made the parrots to remind her of Florida, a place she wanted to go someday. She painted glorious oil paintings, too, even though her hands were crippled with arthritis. In fact, this was the summer that she was going to teach me how to use oil paint on real canvases. But we were cutting out crepe paper when the front door opened. It was our old man. "William, why are you doing home so early?" Grandma asked. "Sales are down, times are hard. Varney had to let me go today," Dad said as he tried to smile. I couldn't believe it. My dad fired? "We'll get by, William," my grandma said softly as she touched his hand. Now Grandma and my old man lived from day to day, even in the best of times. About all the money he ever had at once rattled in his front pocket. "We may be boot poor, but we're rich on dreams," he used to say. Richie and I knew that this news wasn't good. The next morning, Richie and I overheard Dad tell Grandma he'd have to sell his car. "I can't keep up with the payments," he said. I thought of that old cruiser and how the sunlight caught the chrome on the bumper and how Dad's stories all seemed to come from that car. "You can't, Dad," Richie burst out. "Son, I'm going to have to put an ad in the Enterprise today," Dad said softly. "No, Dad, let's go to the Rock," Richie pleaded. "If it really is magic, it'll help." Dad agreed, but when we got there, it just seemed like a big old rock. Richie put his hands on it. "I don't feel anything anymore," he said through bitter tears. Then we all put our hands on the rock. The three of us together traced our fingers right across the old mysterious lines. Our old man felt it first. "I feel something," he said, his eyes glowing. I waited, and there it was. "I do too," I said. "I feel like laughing, only it's inside." "I feel like I could just lift right off the ground," Richie said breathlessly. "By golly, you're right," Dad said, and he jumped up on the rock. "The magic is here." Now, we still didn't know exactly what the magic was, but we knew things were going to get better. Another week went by, then one day as I was looking at the paint set in the window at Balto's, I heard Mrs. Baldo say, "Looking at them paints again?" As I started to leave, she took the paint set out of the window and handed them to me. "They're yours, the canvases too. Your grandma paid for them and said to give them to you when you come by." I knew where the rock's magic had gone. Then I looked up and saw Grandma's beautiful parrots hanging in the middle of the store for sale. When I saw the empty window light that afternoon, I started to cry. "Grandma, your parrots were the next best thing for going to Parrot Jungle in Florida." "Oh, child," she said as she hugged me, "you need those paints just now more than I need to see Parrot Jungle. And the promise is a promise. I said I'd teach you to paint, and I will." Each day, my dad went out and did odd jobs to keep food on the table, and each day Grandma and I worked hard on painting what was supposed to be a surprise for my old man. Dad's cruiser didn't sell, and one day the finance company called to say they were going to take Dad's car back. I was beginning to wonder about the magic. Why wasn't it working? But our old man believed. Almost every day he'd steam out to Potter's Pond and sit by that old rock with Richie and me. But after a time, Richie wouldn't go anymore. Then one day there was a knock on the front door. "Guess they're picking up the car today," Grandma said sadly. I went to get Dad. The old man shoved a piece of type paper into my dad's chest. "Are you the man who wrote this and sent it into the radio station?" "Yes, sir, that's my story, all right," our dad answered. "Well, Bill Barber, I want to shake your hand. That there is some amazing rock you wrote about." "Rock?" Richie said. "Son, I'm not here about that rock. I'm here because of magic, hope, and dreams. These days we've got precious little of that. Anyone who can write these words, then he's down and out and is the kind of man other people need to listen to." Dad looked puzzled. "Mister, I'm offering you a job on the radio. We need people like you at WJIM." Dad had written all about that old rock and the strange and mysterious and the strange and mysterious lines on it, and how we felt its magic. My heart sang just to think about him rolling all over the Midwest in that old cruiser with the sunlight gleaming on his bumper. He'd been collecting stories just like always, only instead of just telling us, he'd been telling them to everybody on WJIM. And sometimes you three can come with me, he said. Maybe someday we'll go all the way down to Florida, all the way to Parrot Jungle. Well, sir, I'm about to tell you the most mysterious thing about that old rock happened next. We all steamed out to Aunt Elsa's woods that very day. We waded the creek to Potter's Pond. We wanted to say thank you in some way to that old rock. But when we got there, the rock was gone. Not a trace of it. But it was right here, my brother yelled as he pointed to the spot where it had been. No sign of it, Dad said, almost in a whisper. Just then the sun streamed through the trees above to make a shaft of light that beamed right where the rock had been. But, Dad, what will we do for magic now? I asked. Then the light got brighter. I think it was at that exact moment that I knew the magic was inside of us. It had been there all along. All the way back home, Richie complained he'd never see the rock again. But I had a surprise of my own. When we got back, I unveiled the painting I'd been working on. It was a Potter's Pond and the wonderful rock. There it is, Richie, old lines and all. The look of wonder that appeared on my brother's face never left his eyes again. The magic of that summer lives in my heart to this day. The rock was magic, all right, but the real magic was the memory of my old man. Any time I want, I get quiet and still inside, and I am little again. I think of that summer by Potter's Pond. I have the gift of that memory any time I recall it, a memory that brings back Grandma, the parrots, the cruising machine, and most especially my old man, a memory that will last as long as children tell others about fathers they love. There's the picture. And here are some pictures of the author with her family. There's her grandma, that's the car, her old man, and her and Richie. So I hope you liked that story and that you guys can have fun making some fun memories.